Hello again in this third video in this series that I'm calling My Journey to God in the Secular World, which is mostly to share my experiences and a lot of confusion in these times with the world and the church that might be helpful to some people. In the last video, I had gotten up to the point that I had left Barstow to go to Nacita, Wisconsin. I entered a congregation there, and then at a certain point there was a problem because I didn't obey Rome, so I left there. But then I entered into the oblates of the Virgin Mary, and then I explained what happened there with the big division due to Father Gino Boresi and the separazione and all of that. So now we got up to the point where I was sent away from this congregation without any explanation. I went back to Barstow, California with my parents. And at that point what I did was I then left Barstow to go with a good priest friend in San Bernardino, California, who will very happily welcome me in his rectory, Father Louis Marks in San Bernardino. And I began to work with him, help him as a secretary, and help him with the computer and the whole thing. At a certain point I felt like I had to do something with my life, even though I didn't perhaps have that peace or whatever inside after being thrown out of a congregation. And so I applied to the Diocese of Orange. They accepted me, and I went into the Diocese of Orange, and I began, so I went into a parish and began working there in a parish at Huntington Beach in the Orange Diocese with Father Bellew, and that was a good experience right there in Orange. And also I had a sister in Orange and also a brother in Anaheim. That's why the diocese felt I was part of family, because I had a brother and a sister right in that area. And so anyway, I began working there, and it was pretty good. I learned a lot and everything. But at a certain point, I think I didn't realize, after being thrown out of a congregation so suddenly without explanation, I didn't realize I was really in a depression. And after a year there in Orange, it was kind of like the battery was finished, and I was just ready to collapse. It was my first experience with depression. I didn't know even what it was. I didn't know I needed perhaps a medicine or something. So at a certain point, I just went into kind of a crisis, and at the end of that first year, there was some friends in Italy who had invited me to come back to Italy, like in their family. So in that crisis and then this invitation in Italy, I decided to go back to Italy. So I went with this family and so on, but then after about a month or two, I began to feel, even though I was really in crisis, but I began to feel I perhaps did not abandon totally the vocation. And so what I did, while I was in the Oblates of the Virgin Mary, I had went to several meetings and so on with the Focolarini. When we met the Focolari, because when I was studying theology, I was at Rocca di Papa, and Pope John Paul II had leased the big buildings of Castel Gandolfo to the Focolarini. And when they had their big meetings, they didn't have enough places for people to sleep, so they would send an awful lot of people to Rocca di Papa, where I was studying theology. So I was meeting all these Focolarini, and so I began to go to some of their meetings, and I really liked Chiara Lubick. I met her there at one of those meetings. And so when I was there in Rome now with this family, wanting to maybe go forward with my vocation, I decided to go to Lo Piano, the first cittadella the little city of the Focolare movement at Lopiano, about 20 miles south of Florence. So I went there, and they accepted me, and really that's kind of what I needed at that time, because I was really in a depression. I was really in a depression, you know, and there at Lopiano, it was good for the depression because I could work outside and pray and be in a community. So I was working, we were praying with lots of other people, seminarians, also priests, and that's really what I needed. As soon as the superiors there found out that I was pretty good at lots of things, in fact, I did the electrical work of 2 houses in California for my father. They had bought that big Franciscan complex from the Franciscans for the Focolare movement, and so they asked me to bring forward the electrical work has 60 rooms, an old convent made 500 years ago, and 60 rooms. So I directed with 30 or 40 seminarians and everything, to redo the whole electrical system. We've got the panels and everything else, and so I directed all of that. And then after about 2 years of that work, at a certain point, I expressed that I would like to go forward with my vocation. And so the head of the priest of the Focolare movement, Father Silvano Cola, he then found a bishop who was a friend of the movement to ordain me a deacon, and then to let me free to go in Africa with the Focolare movement in Africa. So, in what year was that? That would be about, where were we? 1993, right? I went to Lopiano in 1991, and then in 1993, I was ordained at Lopiano a deacon for the diocese of Perugia, because the bishop at that time was Bishop Ennio Antonelli, who was a good friend of the movement. And so he authorized my incarnation in Perugia. I was ordained at Lopiano, and then I took a little vacation, went back to California, and while I was in California, I also participated in the World Youth Day in Denver, Colorado, as I went from California to Denver and boy to the East Coast to fly back to Italy. So I participated. That was a real nice experience in 1993, the World Youth Day. And then I came back to Italy, and then I went down to this little city of the Focolare movement in Cameroon. It's called Fontem in Cameroon. So I went there as a deacon, and I began to work in the jungle, you might say, in the forest. And I would bring communion as a deacon. I would, like many times, say the deacon's mass because there weren't enough priests. And I would go to the different tribes, and because there was already established there a certain the Catholic Church, because the Focolare movement was there since the late 1960s. And so I began to work there, and it was a good experience. And then after about a year there, I also taught in their public schools, because like in Italy many years ago, and even now, the priests teach religion in the schools, so also in Cameroon. So I taught religion and so on in the public schools in Cameroon as a deacon. So finally, after a year, I returned, and then I returned back to Lopiano, near Florence, in Chiesa Valdarno. And then after about a year or so, I expressed my desire to work in the diocese, in the parish. So I went from Lopiano to Perugia, and after I arrived there in December '95 in Perugia, and in And 9 months later, 31 August 1996, I was ordained a priest for the Diocese of Perugia. I think I'll finish this little video clip here, and we'll continue in the next video clip. May God bless you and Mary guide you.